Kennedy. Bring the meeting to order. Oh, my. Could we stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beth, roll call, please.
Mr. Berman?
Here.
Super loud.
Mr. Manfredi?
Here.
Mrs. Stone?
Here.
Mr. Townsend?
Here.
And Mr. Wadsworth?
Here.
Okay, I need a first and a second for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Brian,
I'll second it.
Linda. Any discussion?
No, sir.
Beth, roll call, please.
Mr. Berman?
Yes.
Mr. Manfredi?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Townsend?
Yes.
And Mr. Wadsworth?
Yes.
Okay. John and Beth, would you please begin the school finance discussion?
So we're going to start with a short review about the current tax structure for the Berkshire schools. We are on the 20 mil floor, so that means as property values are increasing, real estate taxes, revenues are also increasing to the district. We have a 1% earned income tax, a 2.45 mil bond levy. In 2023, the reappraisal update showed that home values increased 29.73%. And the PI renewal failed the renewal in November of 2024.
Really quickly, I want to just talk about the 20 mil floor so we all have a common understanding of what the 20 mil floor is. The 20 mil floor was implemented in 1977, and it was to ensure that school districts would receive a minimum of 20 mils of effective operating property tax. It's kind of like it acts as a floor that limits the reduction of tax rates as property values rise, because in I believe 1976, House Bill 920 passed, which prohibited inflationary growth on property taxes. And at the time, the state had a 23 mil charge off where they assumed all districts could raise at least 23 mils. And so in order to protect districts who weren't putting additional levies on the ballot, they set a floor or a minimum level of funding that they thought would be required to operate a district. Because of the fact that we haven't passed new operating money since 2007, that's one of the reasons that we're at the 20 mil floor. So that's what the 20 mil floor is, and kind of where we've been sitting. And about a third of the districts in the state of Ohio have been there. One of the reasons school districts go back to the ballot on average about every 3 years is because of the House Bill 920 reduction factor. Because when a tax levy is passed, it's passed for a specific dollar amount. So if you pass a levy, and we'll see, Mrs. McCaffrey, can you tell us what Berkshire's voted millage rate is right now?
Sure. Our voted millage is 52.25 mils, and it's currently collecting at 22.45 mils.
Okay, so voted millage in the district was 54, but because of the rollback each year, it's collecting at 22. Now, what happens is when there's a reappraisal, that 22 rolls down, but if it goes below 20, then the state rises us up to meet the 20 mil floor, and that's how we see growth when property taxes increase. So that's what the 20 mil floor is. That's kind of why it's there. So just wanted to point that out so that everyone kind of has a common understanding of what we're talking about.
So there's 4 pieces of legislation that is going towards property tax reform. House Bill 129, it restores fixed sum levies and includes them in the calculation of the school district's millage floor. This one does not affect Berkshire. House Bill 186 caps the revenue growth to inflation for a 20 mil floor district, which this will affect us, and we'll show you in the next slide. House Bill 335 limits the revenue increases from inside millage due to the reappraisal, and House Bill 309 gives more authority to the local budget commission. So all four of these bills were passed in December of 2025 and take effect in March of 2026. So House Bill 186 is the one that affects Berkshire the most. It will limit how much the school property taxes can increase when home values go up. It also doubles the homestead and rollback credits to the homeowner, which is a good thing. So you will see some relief on your tax bill. We will be made whole for the take back that's going to happen for 23 through 25. So the bill is retroactive and it's going to take money away that we've already collected. So the district will see reductions between $1 million and $3 million through 2030. So basically what this means, that districts that are already at the lowest tax level are going to get hurt the most because they're at the 20 mil floor. And I want to emphasize, this bill was just signed in December. We do not know exactly how it's calculating. We have an idea what that first year is because they put simulations out, and it's about $1 million. So we're going to lose $1 million and be made whole with those $1 million as a reimbursement. But we do not know the calculation beyond fiscal year 27. So 28, 29, 30, we don't know yet at all.
Beth, when would we have a better idea of what's going to affect in 8, 9?
So the Department of Taxation has been charged with coming up with a calculation, and we are being told that we should have it by mid-April.
Okay,
But
thank
as you know, they changed the forecast schedule, so you'll have to approve a forecast in February. So this graphic compares the district's 5-year financial forecast with and without property tax reform, or essentially October 25's forecast to February 2026 forecast. So without property tax reform, you can see the district's cash balance is steadily declining and becomes a negative in fiscal year 29, continuing to worsen in fiscal year 30. With property tax reform in place, the revenue growth is more limited, causing the cash balance to fall faster and turns negative in 1 year earlier, with significant larger deficits in fiscal year 30. Overall, the graphic shows that property tax reform accelerates the district financial challenges, increasing the urgency for spending reductions or revenue generation. So this graphic shows how the district is doing compared to inflation. So you can see our revenues in 2026 is keeping pace with inflation, and our expenditures are much below. In fiscal year 27, our expenditures are right at inflation, just slightly below, and our revenues are no way keeping up with that. And that's because of House Bill 186. And it's that piece that we're not being reimbursed for. And then in fiscal year 28, I put the assumption in here that our, what we're calling the clawback, is going to be about $715,000 for 28 through 30. So you can see revenues in no way keeps up with inflation. Expenditures, we're lowering our expenditures as much as we can at this point, but revenue's not keeping pace.
So what you can see in this graphic is that the district's spending is growing slower than inflation. So we're not spending up to inflation, and the gap is still widening over time. So the problem isn't how we spend, it's that the funding is capped, but our costs are not capped. We've tried to do our part to be careful with taxpayer dollars, and House Bill 186 makes it harder. even for districts that are very well managed, to keep up with the realities that are beyond our control. This graphic shows the percentage of state funding that Berkshire receives as opposed to the percentage of local funding. So you can see we're at 31% of our funding comes from the state and 69% of our funding comes locally. So roughly, our local property taxes is what funds most of the local. That's 70% coming from here. It's supposed to be a shared venture between state and local. And if you look back in the past, and back in 1997, when the state's funding formula was declared unconstitutional, at that time, the state was funding 47% and local was asked to fund 53%. That was found unconstitutional, and the state was asked to fix it. But you can see the shift over time, and now the state is funding 31% and we're funding 69%. So our revenues aren't outpacing inflation. So it's not really a spending problem. It's a math problem, whereas we're getting roughly the same amount of money, but when the state decides they don't want to send a bigger amount, that leaves the local to pick up for that amount. So essentially the issue is the state shifting the balance of who's going to fund education from their end to our end here locally. And that's what causes us our issues. And you as local taxpayers see that your tax bill is increasing, and most of your tax bill goes to the schools. And so a valid assumption would be the schools are getting more money. In actuality, the schools are getting more of your local dollars, but then they're getting less state dollars. So the schools are getting roughly the same money. It's that shift from the state to the local that's causing the issue. And that's, if anyone cared to share this with your representatives or your senators, that would be the thing to share. Why is the state shifting the burden from their share? I mean, to me, a 30% is not really a share. 50-50, you could maybe consider a share. But like I said, back in 97, when the state was funding 47, that was declared unconstitutional. And the way to fix it was to shift it even lower. So I want to just quickly address some things that we've heard, some things that some people have shared with me, and some posts that people make us aware of, and just address those really quickly so we can kind of get those out of the way and then get back to the issue at hand. So first, didn't we just pass a $30 million bond issue and now they want more money? So the bond issue was to build this facility that we're in. None of that bond issue goes to operating costs. And yes, we did pass that bond issue. But what I will tell you is Berkshire is the only school in the history of Ohio that funded the construction of this building through the USDA. And by doing that, right off the bat, we were able to secure a 3.65 millage rate to build this facility, which saved, over the life of that 30-year loan, $4 million. So you can see in 2019, that millage rate was 3.65. It holds pretty steady. In 2022, we refinanced. Mrs. McCaffrey and I did a lot of work with Moody's. We got the district Moody's rated. The interest rates dropped. We refinanced. It dropped the millage rate down to 3.29, saving the taxpayers money. So we did just what we said. We were going to build a new building. We weren't going to ask for more money for the building. In fact, we came in at budget, and we have, each year that we've been in here, reduced what individual taxpayers have to contribute. The building is now, the bond is now collecting at 2.45, or $85.75 per $100,000 of valuation, which is $42 less than when it originally passed in 2019. So not only did we build a new building and build it under budget, a little bit off schedule, we were about a year and a half longer than we thought we would be, but we have saved money. That refinance saved an additional $4 million on the life of that loan there. So So yes, we did pass that $30 million bond issue. We're absolutely grateful for that. But we have not stopped trying to find ways to make that even more affordable. Another thing we heard, how about we discuss the taxpayers' finances? And we are acutely aware of those struggles and those pains, which is why we always look for alternative revenue streams. It's why we built the preschool, which now has a revenue stream coming in. And the fact that we don't have to outsource our preschoolers to county programs has saved us about $400,000 a year. We chase about every grant we can get. I think in the past 2 years, we've brought in about $1.8 million in grants, and that's an all hands on deck. We have Dr. Povajayev, who writes grants constantly. Mrs. McCaffrey gets grants, I get grants, our principals write grants, our teachers write grants. We're constantly looking for ways to drive down our costs here. We get donations from wonderful partners like Preston, like Great Lakes Cheese. We have business partnerships where, we're starting workforce development pathways and those things. All those things to try to support programs without adding to the taxpayers' burden. And the fact that I'll stress again, 2007 was the last time we asked for any operating money in the district. And in an era where districts are on the ballot at an average of every 3 years, and we've gone nearly 20 years without asking for operational money, I think that's a pretty strong vote to what we've tried to do.
John, let me tack on to what you're saying on the earned income. When we had the income tax, it was 1995. In 2007, we converted it to an earned income tax, and it went from 0.75% to 1%. While you say it was an increase to the taxpayers, it technically wasn't really an increase to us because of the people that dropped off paying that income tax because it being earned. People like seniors, which is what we strive to do. It was Lee Imhoff that really taught us that mechanism, that by doing it, you're taking the seniors to where they don't have to pay on the income they would get from their Social Security, for example. So as far as new money, it may have gone up for a taxpayer like myself, but as far as the gross dollars that the district would get, it really didn't jump because of who was actually paying the tax.
Another thing we heard was, it would be one thing if our outcomes were improving, but they haven't been. I've got right off of the Ohio Department of Education website, our performance index data is in direct conflict with that statement. The performance index is a collection of every state test taken by every child in the district, and you can clearly see that this is in the graph I created. This is a graph I pulled off of the state's website, that in 2021, it was 76.8, in 2022, 82.8, in 2023, 84.8, 2024, 85.9, last year, 87.2. That's increasing every year. Is it where we want to be? No, not yet, but it's going in the right direction. So to me, our outcomes are improving. The other thing, we've added advanced manufacturing workforce pathways. We've added Industry 4.0 with smart automation credentials. We have a mechanical technology pathway in partnership with Preston, an agribusiness and production systems pathway in partnership with Great Lakes Cheese. We are currently working on a material science pathway in conjunction with Duramax Marine. We're going to continue to expand, and we're not asking for more taxpayer dollars to do that. We're just doing that, and those are all indicators that those are outcomes that are improving. We were selected to participate in Battelle's Manufacturing Pathways pilot program. We were one of only 10 high schools in the state. We were the only high school in all of Northeast Ohio. they don't pick people to do these pathways, and they don't pick the only one if they're not seeing improvements or things aren't increasing. Our outcomes are definitely improving and definitely moving in the right direction. We've also heard admin to student ratios and student to teacher ratios are increasing while literacy rates are decreasing. We have 10 administrators. The Ohio Department of Education and Workforce data on similar districts say that similar districts to us have 13. Our student to teacher ratios at the elementary are 20 to 1, 20 students to 1 teacher. At the middle school, 25 to 1, at the high school, 24 to 1. And then as I showed, I don't see how anyone can think our rates are decreasing. I mean, this is a combination of all tests. It's clearly increasing. It seems like funds are being misappropriated to me. We hear that often. Everything we do is an open book. All of our finances are on the website under the treasurer's page. And in addition to that, we are a part of the Ohio checkbook. That we are one of very few school districts in Ohio that participate in the Ohio checkbook. You can go to checkbook.ohio.gov. You can search everything we do, every bill we pay, every check we write is on there for the public to see. We go through a full audit by the state every year, not a partial audit, not a we'll check here and there, a full audit. There is nothing misappropriated. We are spending at the levels that support the model we have in place. We also heard if this levy passes, I would be paying just under $1,000 a year to the school. And I just want to point out really quickly that the average per pupil expenditure in Ohio for all districts, all public school districts, is $17,609.24 a student. That's average. I think $1,000 sounds kind of like a deal. If you look at tuition at Hershey Montessori, the elementary school tuition is $15,000. The middle school tuition is $23,000. The high school tuition is $30,000. At Notre Dame, preschool is $6,000. Primary is $7,250. Elementary school is $77,26. Middle school is $84,25, and high school is $17,750. Very close to the average expenditure for pupil by public schools in Ohio. So, I mean, just to get an idea of of what we're talking about when we talk about what we're paying. So, all that's to say that our spending isn't really the issue. This is the issue. I'm going to go back to this. It's this shift in the burden from the state to the local, and they're kind of pitting the community against the school district because it's reasonable. You see your tax bill go up. You see that it comes to us. That's the easiest connection to make, but it is very clear what this shift has done, and that's really the big thing that's gotten us into this issue. So I want Beth to really talk a little bit about what's happening to our cash balance over the next few years.
So you see in fiscal year 28, we're going to be in the negative. That will put us into a precaution with the state of Ohio. So we'll be required to file a 60-day plan as to how we're going to rectify that. And then this final slide shows days of cash. So you can see we're ending fiscal year 27 with 7 days cash.
So what's next in all this? There's no magic silver bullet. There's no one thing that's gonna do it. There's no one thing that's gonna help. But what we definitely will have to have is we will have to have some expenditure reductions. So without a doubt, there will have to be some cuts. Our strategy will be to start as far away from the classroom as possible and then work inward. We think that our model is designed really well. It's getting pretty good results, so we're going to do the best we can to protect that model. But after a while, once you cut too much, the only choice you have left is to start changing your model from a useful instructional model to a bare minimum model, which we don't want to do, we want to avoid. But all that to say, no matter what happens, expenditure reductions will be a part of the plan. There will have to be cuts, and our commitment is to start those cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. We will also have to add some revenue to replace that lost revenue. What is the only way, or one of the few ways schools have to add revenue? That's a levy. So it's not popular, I understand. I don't like paying taxes either, but it's the hand we're dealt, and we're going to have to do what we can, or at least give it a shot. The other thing that we're going to have to try to do is add more revenue streams. So preschool tuition is one revenue stream that we've added already. We're going to have to expand those programs and try to get more people in there. More business partnerships to help add revenues to that. More seats in our workforce pathways. We currently have sold a few seats in our workforce pathways to outside districts. We'll continue to do things like that. And more seats in our vocational program. We've done that as well. That's probably been our most successful revenue generator so far to this point. And then looking for other revenue generating programs that we can offer that other people will pay to have those services. So those are the things, and it's going to be a combination of all of those things. We're going to have to do some things from all those, and then depending on what happens, how successful a levy is will depend on how many more additional revenue streams or how much cutting we have to do. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to questions from the board for Beth or for myself, and for board discussion.
When the PI, am I on? Okay, sorry. Beth, when the PI did not pass, my recollection is we were collecting about $480,000 a year with the PI. Does that sound correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we had, myself, I'll say, was led to believe if we had passed that PI, we'd have had the money we've needed to run the district, and we wouldn't see red. But based upon what I'm looking at and what you've been giving us here lately, that's not accurate. That we still would have to replace that somehow or increase it because it isn't enough.
Yeah, essentially, our general fund has had to pick up those PI expenditures of about $480,000. So that becomes a burden to the general fund.
And it's a lot easier to cut around the edges when it's not millions of dollars.
When we moved into the building, John, we went to one bus schedule, morning and afternoons. We did that because, there were several reasons, but one of the reasons we did that was we wanted to be able to reduce the amount of spending per mile if you run less miles and run less buses. We agreed that by doing that, we would still pick up within a 2-mile radius of the school, and we would pick up the older kids, which if we went to a state minimum in busing, we wouldn't have to pick up within a 2-mile radius, and we wouldn't have to pick up the older kids. Is that accurate?
It's accurate, but we'd be driving past them anyway to get to and from the others we picked up.
Yeah,
so.
I understand that, but all I'm saying is when people talk about state minimum busing, we technically are doing it with the exception of the houses that we pass that are within 2 miles of the school, we pick up kids. And the older kids we're picking up, it could be siblings, or it could be we're going past those houses and we're picking up those kids. Because that's a question I was asked. Why don't you go to state minimum busing? Well, we kind of did that when we moved into the building.
We're pretty close to state minimum busing already.
Okay. So I just want, what I want the people to know, and people that may be listening online, These are things we've been doing all along. It's not something that, wow, we better do this right now, because if we don't, we're going to be in trouble. We look at every one of these avenues to try to save money for the district. And when the other thing I want to mention, and I did this last meeting, was our janitorial, our snow plowing and mowing, and our busing. None of those employees are district employees. There's a reason for that. When we put the numbers to it, we believed at the time that we made the decision, and now it's been proved out, that because we don't have those employees, we save on their benefits as well. And we also have, in the busing side of it, we believe better training, because first student brings their whole staff and their departments in to do the training. Whereas before, we only used to have a coordinator that had to do all that. And whether or not that person was qualified, that's another question. That's a question we didn't want to have to answer. So that's the reason we have gone to contract services in those areas. We don't have contract services in our cafeteria, but Beth, answer me the question. In our cafeteria, the way it's being run, how is she doing as far as managing money?
So in past, we've had to subsidize the fund, and she is self-sustaining right now.
And we're still feeding our children in the morning, are we not? Which we were not necessarily doing when we weren't in this building. Okay. So, I'll leave the other board members to ask the question, but the last question I'm going to ask Beth and John. It sounds like to me we should wait till after April, the middle of April, before we make any decision on how much of a levy that we need to put on the ballot and go in November, because the problem is we really don't know how deep it is. We're not saying we don't need a levy or an earned income tax increase. All we're saying is we're not sure the amount. One last thing too, Beth. I had mentioned this to you, and I wanted the board to hear this along with the folks. Is there a way we can implement the earned income in progression versus having it all hit at once? In other words, could we, and you'll have to find this out legally because I don't think you can answer me tonight. Year one, people would pay 1.1%. Year two, 1.2, and then you would max out, if we were going for 0.5%, 1.5. Whereas it isn't such a burden. I realize that we're going to play, we're going to play hell catching up because we really need the money sooner. But at least the families can be prepared that it'll be gradual versus all at once. So could you look into that?
I will. I'll ask legal counsel.
I think personally, my recommendation would be that we find out in April what this calculation is, and then we have to put pen to paper a combination of expenditure reduction, additional revenue streams to try to make any potential levy as low as we can make it. And I think that is the most responsible thing to do. Not just say we need 0.5% or say, but let's find out exactly what the calculation is mid-April, and then take that calculation and look at the combination of expenditure reduction, additional revenue stream, and potential levy campaign, which we wouldn't be able to run until November at the earliest. That would be my recommendation, because we just don't know what we need to ask for, and I don't want to ask for too much and I don't want to not ask for enough. And I want to make sure that we've done everything we can so that we're confident that we're not over asking or overreaching or not doing our jobs first.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
John, can you, for the benefit of the audience and everybody, can you talk about vouchers versus open enrollment? When we were planning this building, 2018, one of our funding methods was open enrollment. So, John, if you could speak to that.
Yeah. So in 19, 20, and 21, we were really strong for open enrollment, and essentially the state would fund us $6,000 for every student that was open enrolled to us, and that was a good business model for us. It brought us in good revenue streams because more kids were coming to us than were leaving. We were a net positive. So I think we were in the neighborhood of $690,000 positive when open enrollment happened. In 2022, when the state shifted to Fair School Funding Plan, they removed open enroll from the equation. So they stopped funding open enrollment. And so now they didn't take all that money away from us, but they essentially put us on what they called the guarantee. So they looked at the amount of money that we were pulling in 21, and they said, we'll guarantee that you won't bring in less than that. But for every new open enroll we would take after that, we would, it would be no net benefit to us. And at that point, we put more strict kind of parameters on what open enroll we would accept. And so we've set like caps at each grade level as to what we'll accept. The difference now with the voucher program, we don't qualify for the voucher program. So an elementary school student that decides to leave a public school district and go to a private will get, I think it's $5,500, and a high school student will get $8,500. So, but for example, if I leave Berkshire and I go to Notre Dame in high school, the state's going to give me $8,500 to go there. But if I leave Berkshire and go to West Geauga, the state's not going to give me anything. And our contention, and when I speak to legislators and when I speak to our representatives, I say if it's school choice, why does choosing a different public school not count the same? Or why wouldn't that same voucher follow? If competition is what we want, and we want the strongest to survive, and we want the, I feel like we can compete really well. And I know that if we received a voucher for every open enroll student, we wouldn't be in a financial situation. So that would be a quick fix for us. It wouldn't be a quick fix for other districts that don't do as well in open enrollment. But to me, that's what I tend to argue for. Treat us the same as the privates when it comes to vouchers, because the difference is we're accountable to the public. We have Freedom of Information Act requests. We have to provide everything. But once that voucher money goes to someone and goes to a private school, they're not accountable to any of that. You can't see what they spend that money on. You have no rights or no access. So my thought is, if it's taxpayer dollars going to support that, it should be, they play by the same rules, at least the same financial rules.
Yep.
So my thoughts.
So the state's not even trying to hide it anymore. They want 88 schools or so, right? So every county gets a school. So I don't know about you. I hate paying taxes. I'm with you. But the one thing that we can control is our local area, right? We can have a voice in what goes on in your community. We have a great school. I brought up the vouchers because I think we can compete with any private school. And I've seen our test grades. I've seen our kids graduate, and we are doing our kids great justice, and we're putting them in the world prepared. We need to get our voices heard. This is coming. It's coming, and they're throwing it at us, and they're pitching you guys against us, the school district. They want us to fight. They want us to argue about the taxes, and they want to be left alone out of it. So we either got to get loud, or we got to find another way to fund this, or we are gonna see schools, one county school, and you're not gonna have a voice in that school. You're not gonna have a real voice in that tax collection, and a lot of the students are gonna, and if you think the tax is expensive, try going to Hawken or Gilmore and seeing what that cost is. Just my 2 cents.
I have a quick question. So the state does give us a little bit of money for our students. About how much do they give us? So a voucher kid in high school can get $8,500. About what do we get for our kids from the state?
This year, we're getting about $4,200 a child.
The part of the issue is that the state has a formula where they use property values and incomes and some other metrics to judge the wealth of a community. And even though we know, and you know, and we've explained these House bills, these new state laws have restricted growth, the state, in full understanding of that, still uses that valuation, and that's why the percentage is less them and more us, because they know we're not collecting that, but they assume on their end we're collecting that, so they send us, and that's why the shift happens. So we need to push back on Columbus to say you need to pick up your end so that we don't have to pick up such a heavy end.
And John, for clarity, on the open enroll students, we don't take every child that we could get, and we don't kick out every kid that we get through open enrollment. It's a real tricky way of doing it, because the state, if we didn't take some open enroll children here, and our numbers would drop, the amount of guarantee we get also drops. So we get penalized to send those children back to the districts they're from. Conversely, we can't take every child in open enrollment because we just can't afford it. So we look at it at the kindergarten level, we look at it when they get into middle school, and then we look at it when we get into high school. Typically, we do not accept children throughout high school. It's usually 9th grade, depending upon, let's say, a parochial school, they only go through 8th grade, so we may accept a few of their children when they come into high school. But generally speaking, we just can't not take the open enrolled children. We have to take some. John, correct?
Correct. Yeah. In order to stay on the guarantee, we have to take some, but we try not to take. We try to keep the number. It's essentially almost like a frozen number from 2021, and so if X number of seniors that were open enrolled graduate, that's the number of new open enrolled students we can take.
Okay.
Are you guys just totally confused? Isn't it like crazy how it's so complicated? It shouldn't be that complicated.
That's intentional.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that
It's
complicated.
almost impossible to figure out if you're looking at it casually, and that's completely intentional. It's a system to try to hide exactly what's going on. And I thank you all for coming out tonight to listen to it at the very least. And it takes these informational sessions to try to get this across. And even when your head's spinning, at least you can start asking the right questions. And no matter what is decided or whatever happens for the rest of the night, and you could be vehemently opposed to a levy, which is fine, that's your right. But get a conversation going out there with your coffee buddies or your knitting circles or whatever you're a part of. That's the important part, because when discussion gets going and people are more informed, that's when change can happen. And Columbus seems like this big, scary monster that nobody can touch, and there's a little truth in that. But it's going to take systematic change. We're not the only school that's going through things like this. we're getting hit harder than a lot of them. But there needs to be a wake up time. And I think we're at the point where that has to happen.
I did email our two representatives about coming tonight because I thought it would be helpful for all of us to hear their take on all of this. And I talked to their people and, they acted like maybe, but I wasn't sure. But I did get a response from one and she said, well, if you have any questions, just email me. So that's their input here for that. So please write them. But I have a couple things I want to ask to Beth and John. We've been adjusting because I've always tried to be financially responsible. So can you tell me some of the things that we've done to cut our expenses already?
Yeah, we brought programs, especially special needs programs in-house so that we could serve the students here because it's very expensive to send students out. And we have about 215 total special education students, about 14% of our population. So the more that we can serve here and not have to send them out, that it doesn't bring revenue to us, but it saves us from an expenditure. The workforce pathways, which we're opening up to other districts who want to participate, and it's not just trying to get other districts to pay us. Sometimes it's trading a seat for, like, okay, X district, you have a seat in your construction program, then we'll trade for a seat in our mechanical tech program. It's looking for opportunities for students that don't add expenses to our bottom line. But we also have West Geauga sends 2 kids to our mechanical tech program. They pay for those 2 seats. And so we're looking at things like starting an alternative program for students who need some types of therapy or who struggle in a regular school, and housing that over at the workforce campus and using that as a revenue generator. But we won't start that program unless we know that we're going to have placements in there, because we don't want the expense. And then business partnerships, like we're partnering with Rockwell Automation and Great Lakes Cheese and Duramax Marine, and hopefully in the future, Hexpol and Burton, and just trying to establish those partnerships, which helps our kids get in line for better careers. Also, it puts our kids in placement where at Great Lakes Cheese, even at Preston, they'll pay for those kids to continue on in college. So it's not like they have to forego their college experience. So we're trying to get them as many opportunities as possible. And the partners appreciate that. They see that we're helping build their workforce, which is helping make the county stronger, which is keeping people in the county. And we're really targeting what their needs are. So they're providing us a little bit of financial support with that as well. So, I mean, those are some of the things we try to do. On top of, we procured, with the help of Senator O'Brien, we procured a $915,000 grant to renovate that workforce campus. And then because Preston donated $750,000 for us to purchase that facility, and they pay us rent every month to be in that facility. So they're a great partner in terms of providing us with revenue streams, providing a place for our kids to go to get good jobs, and just being a good partner. And it's kind of a give and take. We both have things to offer. That's what we hope to build with more industry and with more businesses around here.
And our new teachers.
John, am I correct too that Preston is paying rent on the property?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they pay utilities and rent. So any building that they occupy, they're also paying the utilities in. They've been a great partner. It's really cut down most of the expenses we would have had. We essentially launched 2 new programs over there on a 5-acre campus for about $14,000. And those programs are generating, the one program generated more than $14,000 in revenue. So That's a, you know, a great program, a no-brainer. But we have another grant in the works to, with the state to renovate the garage between here and Kent and turn that into a vocational training center. And then that could become a hub, and we would have a mobile food pantry and a consignment show. We would essentially move the Shire Shack into there as well. And that would make our program more attractive to other districts that would want their kids in a program like that. So that will help. And then Dr. Povajayev is, you know, in her 2 years here, I think she's brought in more than $600,000 in grants. And her target now is find ways to supplant expenses we have in the general fund. So go out and look for grants that will pay for the things that are in the general fund so that we can kind of pull those things out. And then, you know, that's what I mean when I say we need to see this calculation so that we can then target what we can fix in grants and what we can get through cuts and what we can get through, you know, before we have to decide what we have to ask for with any type of levy.
If you had a bet, would you say that it would come out in April, that calculation?
My understanding is it's written into the law that taxation has to provide it by April.
They have to.
So
okay.
we'll do a May forecast update.
Okay.
So we can't, say we were to put it on tonight, we would not understand what the whole impact was.
No.
If we waited until April, whatever, we can't put it on in May.
Correct.
Correct. My recommendation would be not to put it on in May. It would be like shooting in the dark.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know
If you
what
put
we're
it on
in.
in May, you would have to pass something tonight.
Okay.
Seems like there's too many question marks.
Any other questions from any board member? Okay, and I did mention that I think it's prudent for us to wait till after the April information that we will be receiving. Hopefully, we will be receiving, because sometimes they have delayed and it makes it more difficult. But Beth, I believe if we were doing something in November, we'd have to have it initiated by August, correct?
Yes,
In 90
I believe so.
days.
Yep.
So really, hopefully, from the time we do get the information and say that's by May 1st, you have May, June, and July to really be able to see the numbers. So with that being said, it sounds like we are not going to act on that this evening. Any other conversation from any board member?
Thank you both for putting that together. That was very informative and easy to digest. So that was very helpful.
And just what Dan reiterated too, it's time, it'd be helpful if people would start writing to their legislatures, because there is talk of consolidating schools by counties. And, you know, they make a decision about a bill and all of a sudden it's done. So it's nice to be aware of that kind of stuff too. And I think there's sites you can go on if you have like things you want to be concerned about with education. I think there's something, Mrs. Edinburgh, so check with Mrs. Edinburgh. She was the one who told me about it, that you can go to it. So the things like that are related to education, when those bills come out, you can find out when they are going to vote on them in case you wanted to write letters or make a call. The other thing is when you are talking, make sure that you know the facts, because a lot of things like John put out today are not necessarily factual. So if you have questions, you know, email or call one of us up here. And if we don't know the answers, we can find the answers from somebody. But rather than just say things about stuff and then that's what gets out there, then people get all angry and, you know, it gets nerve-wracking and stuff like that. So that's just a word for the wise.
If you see it on Facebook, it's probably wrong. So yeah, ask someone who knows what they're doing.
The five of us were elected by the folks that are out there. And we want to do what's right for everyone, but especially the students, because that's why we're here. So I just bring that up because we can't be adversarial. We've got to find the answers. And it's pretty difficult. I will tell you, I've been doing it 20 years, and the last 5 years have been more difficult than the first 15. And it's not because we built a new school. We should be enjoying the fruits of our labor. But right now, we're just fighting off our backs to make sure that we could fund educating these children. So I really just wanted to bring that up, that's the 5 of us that sit in front of you, so.
I think that's the most frustrating part is we did everything right. I wasn't up here, it wasn't we, but you guys
You
did
did.
everything right.
Because you were the treasurer. You did.
Oh, well, yeah, well, we built and planned based on the information we had and we nailed it. It was exactly what we set out to do. And then all of a sudden, with none of this in our control, turned upside down.
It's like playing a game without knowing the rules.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's what's so frustrating. Because to the person who's not paying attention, it does look like we're a bunch of doofuses up here and we don't know what we're doing. We promised things that didn't come true. We set a model that didn't work, and I can't blame people that don't know more or don't have the time or desire to dig into this a little deeper. Yeah, it's just really frustrating because I think we do really good work here. Everybody who comes to visit, Dr. Stoddard gives us updates with legislators who come in and other superintendents from not just Ohio, but all over. And they are just floored at what we're doing here. And to turn around and see that we're getting stripped of money, even though we're doing exactly what we should be doing, is just really disheartening and frustrating.
But none of the 5 of us are quitters, so.
No.
I want to be able to say that too. We will find a way.
A humble brag. So my daughter could graduate this year as a junior, right? So because of what Berkshire provided, she is now able to take Ohio State classes this summer. And then she can take college credit classes all next year. She has 1 class for Berkshire left. So all those classes she gets is going to save money on her college and future education. So, to say we're not doing a great job for these kids, I don't know where that comes from, but they have as many opportunities as they want. It's up to the parents and them to pursue them, but they are out there.
Yeah, you got to listen to the Stodcast today. It's talking about the middle school things and all that they have for options. So check it out.
Anything else? At this time, we're going to open up the floor for public comment. We ask that you please come up to the microphone and speak. You're going to be addressing the board. We need it into the microphone because the people at home cannot hear what you're saying if you don't talk into the microphone. And all we ever ask is that you're respectful to us. So, anyone that wants to come up?
How old is she?
She's 4. She's my youngest. So I'm actually an administrator at another district. And I just want to say, we moved to Berkshire 2 years ago. I've been extremely happy with this district. And I want to say, I know most of this town votes a similar way I do, and I do not like when taxes increase at all. The thing is, you have to remember, if you vote down levies, your property value tanks too. When you go to resell your house, nobody wants to move to a district or an area where your schools aren't good. So your property values will tank too. Also, voting the way I vote, I don't really care what's going on in all of the United States or what's going on in Minnesota or whatever it may be. I don't care what's going on in the state of Ohio, but I do care what's going on in my own home. And my home is Burton. So please vote for this levy. We need to pass it. Thank you. I have one question. Mr. Stoddard, what is your goal for the performance index? How do you, just because I am an administrator, how are you going to increase it? Because you had a huge jump from 2021, and that was during COVID. We all had a jump during that. What are you going to do to keep increasing that performance index that would get the voters to want to pass this levy?
Yeah, so we target it individually. So our goal each year is wherever a child was the year before to try to get them just one level farther the next year. So if they scored at the limited level one year, the goal is for them to be basic. If they scored at the basic, the goal is to move to proficient. If they scored proficient, to move up. And the way we do that is we implemented a strategies period. So to go along with the literacy program that we have. So we give a diagnostic, we see where their areas of strength and our areas of weakness are, and then we use that strategies period to target those areas with some extra help for them. But
Okay, and you look at state release items, and I assume you do backwards design, you hit all the standards, and you're doing what you need to do to
Yep.
keep increasing that performance index. And one thing you didn't mention, we got a 4.5 star on the state report card, and that's amazing. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. We've already done the board discussion, so we switched somewhat out of order. John or Beth, is there any need for executive session?
no.
Okay,
Can I say one thing? We're going to need a levy committee. So if anybody's really excited about it, that would be fantastic. Let us know. All right, good.
Yay.
thank you all for coming.
We're gonna
And
return.
those of you who are watching online, thank you for taking the time. With that, like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Brian,
Seconded.
Dan, any discussion? Beth, roll call, please.
Mr. Manfredi,
Yes.
Mrs. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Townsend,
Yes.
Mr. Wadsworth,
Yes.
Mr. Berman.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.